Hey everybody, it's Carm here, coming to you on a Friday afternoon. Had a little time, felt like coming on and doing something I hadn't done in a while. It's an artist profile. Done a few in the past, and I have a few kind of lined up, looking to do soon. And this is one I've been thinking of for a while. And this really goes back as far as I fell in love with this fellow's music before I even knew who he was. I'd heard it on, we had a smooth jazz station back in the late 80s, and it went until about, I think, 2009. But back then I heard a lot of the music, which later led me to what I was, got into in the ensuing years, including musical star streams and everything else. And this particular artist was kind of right there at the beginning. And his name is Richard Souther, keyboardist, synthesist, piano. Just wonderful, long-time favorite. I believe he started playing professionally in the mid-70s. Didn't start recording until the mid-80s, around 85. I think it was 85 this is recorded, his first album, Hairborn. I think there's an interview online, or a really nice little interview. I think it's fairly recent, and he got sick during that time, or I think it was maybe late 70s, early 80s, came down with botulism, and couldn't play for a while, and it was kind of a slow recovery process. But that's when he got into electronic music to kind of aid him in composing and playing, and then eventually got his the physical ability to play again. And yeah, it's really incredible story, kind of overcoming that, and still around today. But yeah, it starts with Hairborn, his first album, which is in the background here. It was definitely songs from this one, which I had heard way back when without even really knowing who he was. It was a few years before I got into later albums, and then kind of led me to to look back on it. But yeah, it's all synthesizer. Again, from 1985. This is originally came out on the Meadowlark label, which I believe is a Christian label, mostly instrumental, and see reissued on Laserlight. I know Gary has a few of these too. These reissues, somewhere in the lighter jazz, new age realm. But yeah, he's a characteristic of his, which is similar to other favorite artists of mine, like Ray Lynch, Richard Bermer, Tim Story. His attention to detail in the music. It's very constructed, and however sparse or complex it is, he really puts a lot into each. Every voice on the synthesizer is sounds like it's very carefully chosen and sequenced, and the arrangements. That's something that I've heard throughout his music. Throughout all of his albums I've heard, and yeah, and it's to me it's also very beautiful, and kind of runs the gamut of emotions. But yeah, this is his first album here, Hairborn. His second one, Intermission, also in a similar vein. This came out a year later in '86, and this one's originally on Meadowlark. You see the insignia there, and the various synthesizers he plays. And yeah, again, very beautiful, melodic. A little bit of light sequencer. This first piece, Steps Above, is one of my all-time favorites in general, and It Was You After All on the second side is also in a similar vein. Yeah, very beautiful, tightly constructed. I love the covers on, if you've ever seen anything on the Meadowlark label, they always have really nice covers. Very evocative, looks like the stands at a field of some kind, a football field or soccer field, arena, outdoor arena. And, yeah, this and Hairborn really kind of really go together. The themes are very similar, and it was among the earliest music I had heard of his. And again, it was at least 5 years before I eventually found out who it was. And once I picked up these albums much later on, and yeah, it just brought me back to, I think I had first heard him around tail end of the 80s, early 90s, around 90 or so. Absolutely beautiful stuff. Now, right around this time, he recorded under a pseudonym, Douglas Trowbridge. And I didn't know at the time that this was one and the same person, Douglas Trowbridge, Richard Souther. Now, Douglas Trowbridge is actually part of his name. So I believe his full name is, it's his middle name. So it's Richard Douglas Trowbridge Souther. And he recorded a couple albums, all acoustic, just acoustic piano under this name, Douglas Trowbridge. And this first one here, it's kind of like I have the first one under his name on CD and the second one on vinyl, and the same thing with the Trowbridges. Yeah, beautiful solo piano. Again, a reissue on the Laserlight, originally on the Meadowlark. He was eventually went on to Narada Records, and this is similar to a couple of other Narada piano players, David Lanz and Michael Jones. Probably a little jazzier, but very beautiful. You know, paints a nice picture. Very simple, but again, the attention to detail in is you know, very much there. And yeah, if you like any kind of solo piano, the quieter, contemplative solo piano, I would definitely recommend it. I think this one's from '85 too. Yeah, so this is recorded '85, same time as the Hairborne album. So I don't know, maybe he was doing it, you know, would go in the studio and record one and then do the other. And the next one here, Second Story. Excuse me. This one came out in '87. I loved it, and again with the covers, the rooftop there. I believe that's in there. And there in the back. The artist himself, you know, with the light and everything. Yeah, and very much kind of like the other two albums are kind of one piece. This is very much like the first. Yeah, kind of somewhat jazzy, improvisational, but again very, you know, very close to the composition. And they're all originals except for one piece called "Holy, Holy, Holy" by John B. Dykes, 1861. Looks like it was composed. But yeah, again, another one very much recommended if you like just you know, just kind of nice sort of background acoustic piano solos. And, yeah, just lovely stuff. Found this one out maybe a few years ago at Half Price Books, which I didn't even. This is before I even knew about that connection with Trowbridge. So that came pretty recently. And now moving back into just Richard Souther. Yeah, mentioned before, he eventually went on to Narada, and first album recorded there was Cross Currents. So that one's from '89. Now this is probably, up until that point, his jazziest album, and I absolutely love this cover. The music is very much like the cover. It would be really nice to have this on vinyl and to have this, you know, kind of enlarged. Maybe that's what the original looked like. Not really sure. And you can see some of the guests on here. Kirk Whalem's on there. Abraham Laboriel on bass. Chester Thompson. Alex Acuna. Very beautiful, lush. You know, it's synthesizer, but there's also, you know, saxophone, bass, drums. Kind of a lighter jazz fusion, you know, happening, but there's a certain the emotional pull is very pardon my finger there, it's a little accident at work, but yeah, it's so beautiful, and again just runs the gamut of emotions. He really puts his heart into the music, and sounds like he really, you know, the artists on air, you know, performing with him really sounds like they really feel it too, and it's yeah, again, just really like the cover. Really nice driving music too. There's a piece called Banana Shakes, which is really, I think it's the fourth cut. Really nice for cruising around. Now this next one, also on Narada, is just an all-time favorite. It's hard to choose among this and, you know, his earliest albums like Hairborne or Intermission, but it's very much right there with it. Yeah, 12 Tribes. From 1990. There's a certain exuberant exuberance, joyousness, even innocence to the album, which from the first time I heard it was just so compelling, just incredibly beautiful. This is on the Narada. Both of these are on the Narada Equinox branch of the label, which is more of like the eclectic fusion. He has fewer guest artists on here, some of the same from the previous album, but this is more of a solo album, kind of like the early ones, where it's just on him and him on keyboards, drum machine, a little bit of percussion. It's just incredibly, again, beautiful, joyous. It has like a tinge of nostalgia, like it's almost like an ode to childhood. It sounds like to me. Just I find myself, even memories come to me which came to me long before I heard this music. It's almost like they kind of dredged them up in a way, but very beautiful and positive, and they're perfect if you're in kind of a, if you're having a rough day, or you're even a state of a depressed state. It does lift you quite a bit, considerably. It's really kind of a go-to album for that, and again, just an all-time favorite. I'd start with, for his the ones under his Souther, his original given name, Richard Souther. I'd recommend all of these to start out with, but this one particularly is just, I don't know, to me just has a certain, even a greater emotional pull. Now, later on, going later into the 90s, he went in somewhat of a different direction as far as thematically, going in more, I guess, more overtly religious. Vision, music of Hildegard von Bingen. On this one, you still have the keyboards and synthesizers, though he also uses vocals. Emily Van Ivera and Sister Germaine Fritz, singing like these devotional hymns, and it sounds like he's taken some of her pieces, rearranged them, as well as maybe composing his own, and in the spirit of the original spirit of the music. Yeah, it's very very lush, very again, very emotional, and without it's really it's overtly religious music without sounding too pious. I mean, he really puts a nice touch on it, and at times there's percussion and even kind of like somewhat like a light techno, of the time, some of the beats, but very very sparse, but it doesn't detract from the music at all. And, he did a second one in a similar vein, Illumination. Looks like with the same, possibly some of the same vocalists, but there's also vocals and again, the lush instrumentation, a little bit of percussion, but just absolutely beautiful. These are both on the same. Yeah, they're both on. Or one's on Angel, and the other's on Sony. And these are albums I didn't find out until much later, maybe within the last 10 years or so. They're from the late 90s, 99, 97, and 98, 95, 97. But, yeah, it's another, kind of another side of him. But I would, if you're really looking to get into his music, I'd start from the very beginning and kind of go sequentially, and even starting with the Naradas before, getting to these. But if you like the more devotional, hymns and things, you could just as well start with these. But yeah, lovely stuff. I've only given these kind of a cursory listen recently, but from what I remember they were very, very powerful at the time. And finally here, I don't think I have the entire collection of his, but what I could find over the years. This is the most recent one, as far as I know. The Visual Futurist. It's a original motion picture soundtrack, and this is from, I think it's from the later 2000s. Can't really says on here, but this is incredibly. This is probably his darkest album, 2005. Yeah. It's probably his darkest, most mysterioso sounding album. You know, fitting for the soundtrack. You know, again, kind of like looks like the cover. You know, it almost has like a sense of foreboding, but not negative at all. Though he probably is most ambient too, as far as like a steady state. There's a lot of pieces on here, but they're all kind of in a similar, that kind of steady state vein. All synthesizer, it sounds to be, and yeah, just taking it into a realm which I hadn't heard before. You know, playing stuff that's not as hard on your sleeve as far as the melody, but just more, you know, almost drone-like at times, but works really well, and you know, shows he's definitely a master of you know, all kinds of you know, keyboard-oriented music. But yeah, just yeah, definitely in the darker ambient realm. This is, you know, highly recommended. But yeah, that's I think it's pretty much it. Yeah, Richard Souther, great. Richard Souther, also known, you know, slash Douglas Strawbridge. Yeah, you know, just an artist who's been with me a long time, and yeah, I think it was, I don't know how many years it was before I actually found out who he was from hearing those albums. I picked up the Narada albums first, you know, came across them, really liked them, but hadn't heard the songs before. And then eventually found these, you know, just out and about, the Intermission and the Airborne, and it all came together. It's like I knew half the songs from both albums from, you know, again, you know, quite a few years earlier. So, you know, somehow the circle you know, comes complete. So yeah, definitely recommend it if you like you know, the contemporary keyboard-based instrumental. It's just yeah, a really special artist, and yeah, always happy to see what he'll come up with next, and yeah, what turn he'll take. So yeah, well, that'll do it for this time around. And oh, before I forget, somebody was asking about the T-shirt. I think it says Martin Spin It Tweaks. You know, if you could, that shows up real well. Yeah, I like my puns there. The silly humor. Couldn't resist this. Yeah, it's an old one I've had from Sedona for quite a while. But yeah, he was asking about that. But yeah, so yeah, I'll have a few more profiles to do eventually. I have some ideas, and but yeah, I was finally ready to do this one, and had been listening to his music a little bit, even like out in the garden and everything. And it's perfect for this time of year too. You know, especially, you know, like the 12 Tribes and spring and summer, and even this one, the Airborne, is playing right now, still playing. I think this song is Heart Call. Yeah, just kind of like the title is very, you know, very emotional and evocative. So yeah, definitely check them out if you can. And I'll try to leave a link to the interview video on YouTube. I think there's at least one, and I know there's others of performances, but you know, I'll try to find those and send you towards them. But yeah, Richard Souther, check them out. So, well, until next time, I hope you're all well, and I keep forgetting to mention this. Thank you to all the new subscribers. I've had quite a few recently, which is you know, always a pleasant surprise. And yeah, I always forget to mention, but I appreciate everyone who watches and subscribes and comments. It really means a lot, and so yeah, thank you all if I hadn't mentioned it recently. So yeah, I hope it's well, I'm sure it's pretty much summer for most areas, from what I understand. It certainly is here. It's just about to kick in officially. So well, until next time, I'll see you all when I see you. Peace, love, and joy.